The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by NYRA Bets. Bet the Kentucky Derby by using the code SGPN25 for $25 free bet plus $200 deposit match bonus at nyrabets.com/SGPN25 and start winning today. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Thursday morning, early, roughly 2 a.m. Eastern Time on May 1st. I'm always Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the quarterfinals in Madrid. So we're going to preview the 4 matches taking place on Thursday. Apologies in advance, by the way, that I ended up recording so late. Truth is, we were looking at the actual schedule, and I accidentally miscounted what round we were actually in. So I ended up actually previewing a couple matches in advance. I thought the Cerundolo and Mensik match was actually a round of 16 match accidentally. So the point is, I thought the round of 16 wasn't over yet. So that's why I was a little bit out of sorts. But I realized afterwards, and as a result, we are here to break down the 4 matches here for Thursday. So once again, apologies. Better late than never, I guess. Hopefully you see this before the matches start. But either way, show must go on. We are here to break down the 4 matches taking place on Thursday. And before we get into the actual breakdown of the quarterfinal matches, I do want to quickly recap how we did in the last episode. Unfortunately, a bad tournament for us. Picked up a loss for the lock and dog. Had de Minaur first at money line at minus 128 as our lock. Didn't work out as de Minaur fell down a break in the first game of the match. And then he was not able to break back as he ended up losing 6-4 in the first set. Or was it 6-3? Point is, though, I think it was 6-4. The point is, Musetti got an early lead, coasted, so picked up a loss there. For the dog, though, what a brutal beat. We had de Minaur in straight sets. We had Dimitrov in straight sets at plus 130 against Diallo. Looked really good. Looked really, really good. Won the first set 7-5, fought off a couple break points early in the second set. He had 3 match points. 2 on his serve in the tie break, and he choked it. Choked it all away, and then eventually Diallo came back and he won in 3 sets. What an absolute heartbreaker. Dimitrov has been a guy that I have just never been able to get right, and it felt like a great spot with Diallo beating a couple of lower-ranked players to get to the round of 16 as a lucky loser. Dimitrov was in great form entering the match, looked really good, and then he punted away the breaker like it was nobody's business. Once again, 3 match points. He had a couple other easy putaways, had a drop volley that he ended up shanking basically to give Diallo a free put away. He had the crazy diving point, which he ended up losing. It was really a wild tiebreak, but damn, Dimitrov choked away so many opportunities there. And then he lost the match. But either way, point is he had 3 chances to win it, and he failed all 3 times, and eventually did punt the plus 130. So really not a good tournament for us, and it's been a struggle. So we'll try to get back on track here for the quarterfinals. But once again, the dog play, I think we capped it right. Dimitrov was right there. Unfortunately, though, we were 1 point away on 3 separate occasions, and we didn't get it. So picked up a loss there. I'll look for a better episode here on Thursday for the actual preview of the quarterfinals and the recap of the round of 16. A reminder, you can show support for the show by liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel. And a reminder, you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. So please help us out there. Also want to mention the last episode, there was a glitch with the recording software. So it was supposed to be a live stream, and it was on Twitter. For some reason, it didn't also simulcast to YouTube. So I had to post it as a video. So that was kind of weird, but either way, we should be back on track here for this one. Either way, though, don't forget to leave a feedback, whether it involves the YouTube subscribing and liking, or whether it involves a review and a rating on Spotify or Apple. Plus, a reminder, you can check out the merch store for Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, and we have mugs. High quality, very affordable, different colors. Recommend getting yourself something there. Plus, a reminder that you can show support for the show, not just this show, but every show on SGPN, by supporting the free content by taking a second to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Moving on, though, to the matches in the round of 16 for the recap. Now, it was a weird schedule because of the rain, and it's kind of why I ended up mixing up the days here. We had a couple of matches that were in the round of 16 on the 29th, and I completely forgot about that. So the Mensik match against Bublik was a round of 16 match, and I forgot it was a round of 16 match. It's kind of why the schedule got a bit messed up. But you saw, once again, Mensik beat Bublik comfortably. You ended up seeing Cerundolo beat Zverev comfortably in straight sets. Saw Medvedev come back from a set down against Nakashima, and you ended up seeing Ruud beat Fritz in straight sets. Nothing too dramatic for those round of 16 matches on Tuesday. But overall, once again, there was a 3-setter with Medvedev. I'll see how he looks in the quarterfinals of the clay event against Ruud. Now, for the matches on Wednesday, also not much drama. Arnaldi beat Tiafoe in straight sets. Saw Draper beat Paul comfortably 6-2, 6-2. Draper looks really good right now. Saw Musetti beat de Minaur in straight sets comfortably, and you're looking at was the only match full of drama, which was the match we ended up losing on. It was the Dimitrov match against Diallo, which was pretty hectic. Dimitrov, once again, had 3 match points. Seemed like he might have pulled something in the tie break, and then he ended up losing the breaker. Then he immediately got broken in the first game of the third set. And Diallo serves very, very hard, and he's tough to break. So he could not break back, and you ended up seeing Diallo hold out to win the match. So either way, a point is not too much drama in the round of 16. You had one really good match. You could argue 2 if you want to include the Medvedev one. It wasn't that great. I think the Cerundolo-Zverev match was high quality, but it was a straight set win for Cerundolo. So point is not too much drama, but we'll see how the matches shape up here for the Thursday card. Now, before we get into any of the other, I'd say, matches we're going to talk about for this episode, briefly looking at what's going on with the women right now in Madrid as well. You saw Swiatek losing a bagel in the first set to Keys, came back in 1 and 3. Goff beat Andreeva. Saw Svitolina beat Uchijima, and you ended up seeing Sabalenka win 2 tie breaks against Kostyuk. So a couple usual suspects here with Swiatek, with Coco, and with Sabalenka. Should be a very fun remainder of the matches on the women's side for the tournament. But of course, we're only going to be breaking down the men here for this episode. Wanted to mention that, though, because I thought it was important to mention how stacked the women's draw is at this point in time. Anyway, before we get into the actual breakdown of the quarterfinal matches on Thursday, a reminder that we're brought to you by our sponsor, Edges, because the first our bank account for bettors. You can ensure that all gambling transactions are approved, no usage fees, no minimum balance, also cashback rewards, 100% approval for all betting deposits. You can also sign up today at edgeboost.bet. Promo code SGPN. Deposit $25 and Edgeboost will match the deposit. Edgeboost.bet. Promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by NYRA Bets, because it is Derby Week at SGPN. Make sure to check out the horse gambling or the horse racing podcast, Notorious OTB, for all of your picks. Plus, you can get on the action of the most exciting 2 minutes in sports with NYR Bets. Sign up today, boost your Derby bankroll with a $25 free bet and a $200 deposit bonus with promo code SGPN25. Join now to claim your $25 free bet and $200 deposit match bonus at nyrabets.com/SGPN25. We're also brought to you by MyBookie.ag, because with the book that every sport, they have the NBA playoffs, they have the NHL playoffs, they have baseball, they have UFC, whatever you can think of, MyBookie does have. And a reminder, they also are accessible from a ton of locations, so I recommend using it if you are in a state that's not legalized, that has not legalized sports betting yet. Plus, a reminder, you can use crypto for easy deposit with payouts. And a reminder, you can also use the promo code SGPN when you sign up for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000. Organizations apply. MyBookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish recapping what happened in the round of 16. Time to move on into the quarterfinal matches taking place on Thursday. Starting off with the first match on the card, you have what should be a pretty interesting one, because you have Ruud against Medvedev. Now, Medvedev's actually undefeated against Ruud. Never dropped a set against Ruud. They faced off 3 times. However, every meeting was on hard court, so that is definitely in favor of Medvedev. They've also not faced off since 2021, so very dated. Can't really use it, but Ruud's been very good so far in the event, as Ruud has not dropped a set yet. Been looking very comfortable. Beat Rinderknech in straight sets, beat Korda in straight sets, and beat Fritz in straight sets. So good competition. Not really Rinderknech, but beating Korda and beating Fritz in straight sets is still an impressive run there. I'll see how he looks in this one. As for Medvedev, he's been getting by, but he hasn't really beaten anybody. Had a walkover against Dajir, had a win against J.M. Cerundolo, which is not the good one. Ended up winning 6-2, 6-2, and he was able to beat Nakashima in 3 sets. We know Nakashima is not known for being a good clay player, so the point is you have Ruud who's looked much better against better competition. Even though Medvedev's undefeated, I understand why Ruud is minus 170, why Medvedev is plus 149. For the spread, minus 2.5 for Ruud, plus 2.5 for Medvedev, and the over-under is around 23 games. Now, for the set spread, Ruud in straight sets is plus 153. You have Medvedev to win a set of minus 200, and the over 2.5 sets is around plus 125. So for this actual matchup, I think Ruud should be favored. I agree with the line. Now, you could argue that it's a bit steep. I don't think it is, because Medvedev, even though he's been able to make it back here to the quarters in Madrid, he hasn't really played anybody. And I get Nakashima can be difficult because of the fast-paced courts here in Madrid and the serve that Nakashima has. But Ruud was able to beat Fritz, who has a good serve as well. Korda's serve can be pretty good at times as well. I just think Ruud right now is in better form. And both guys are head cases, so I think it could be a very up and down match. Yes, Ruud has not won a set against this guy. That was also 4 years ago, the most recent meeting, so I can't really use it. But Ruud, I think, has been better. I think he's more comfortable on the courts here. I think he should win. He could choke. Well, don't get me wrong. Both these guys could choke. It wouldn't shock me. But give me Ruud, who's more comfortable on the surface, who's beaten better competition in pretty much every round. I'll take him in this one to get the job done. Minus the games, I don't mind. I think 2.5 is reasonable. I think that Ruud, once again, could win this in straight sets or in 3, but I do think that minus 2.5 games is definitely intriguing. I'll go with that as my choice for this one. Moving on to the next match, you have Mensik against Cerundolo, a very fun match. Cerundolo is fresh off the win against Zverev, and Mensik has really not been tested at all in the event. For the actual pricing, Cerundolo is minus 128. You have Mensik at plus 108. For the spread, minus 1 for Cerundolo. You have plus 1 for Mensik. The over-under is at 23.5 or 22.5 at minus 140 in the over for the 22.5. For the set spread, you have Cerundolo in straight sets at plus 181. You have Mensik to win in straight sets at plus 269. And the over 2.5 sets is also around plus 120, plus 125. Now, both guys have been very, very good so far in the event. Cerundolo has not dropped a set yet, beat Zverev in straight sets, beat Komisanya in straight sets, and beat Mayotte in straight sets. For Mensik, was able to beat Bublik in straight sets, beat Shelton in straight sets, and beat Quinn in straight sets. So Mensik, we know, had a great run in Miami, won a 1,000 title, and we are questioning how sharp he'd look on clay. The questions have been answered. He's really good. Now, I do want to point out Bublik in the round of 16 is definitely a favorable draw for him. Then again, he did beat a couple of good players, ended up beating Papirin, who can be tricky on clay, ended up beating the likes of Rublev. So it wasn't like Bublik was in bad form, but either way, point is definitely the draw you would kind of want if you had a spot in the quarterfinals on the line. But Mensik's been great. Serve's been really good. Forehand's been very good as well. And I feel like the most underrated aspect of his game is court coverage because he has a lot of firepower. He covers the court very well for a taller guy, and that's why he's going to be a dangerous player for a long time. Cerundolo, though, we know, is more comfortable on clay based on the resume. We saw him lose to Shelton in the semis in Munich, so we have seen him lose to big servers before on clay, but he's been mostly dominating. If you ignore that loss to Shelton in 3 sets, he has won in straight sets in 6 straight. So besides the one blemish against Shelton, he's been rolling. Now, I do think Cerundolo should be favored because I understand the resume differential. However, I think the short line is pretty telling, and I agree with it. I think Mensik's really good. I think Mensik can make this very interesting. I think Cerundolo, I'd still probably pick to win the match, but if Mensik ended up winning in 3, similar script to the Shelton match, I would not be shocked. I think that Mensik is really good. I think that he's definitely going to be a future top 10 player in the world. And I do think that he has a very underrated game on clay. The serve's been great, though. The second serve can be a bit problematic, but Cerundolo's serve is not great by any means. So Mensik, I think, should generate more breakpoint chances over the course of this match. And I do think that Mensik can easily erase a couple of tough moments with a big first serve. I think Mensik's actually alive to win this. I think the short line is, once again, I'd say warranted. And I think that even though Cerundolo would be my pick to probably win, Mensik has more than a puncher's chance. I think it's going to be a marathon. I like the over. Probably a breaker in there. I see plus 125. The one head-to-head meeting happened in Beijing last year on hard court, and you saw Cerundolo win in straight sets. But the first set was a breaker, so they did cash in the first meeting. I think you're going to see a closer match here, but I do think that Cerundolo, just based on the experience, I think will eventually find a way. But I like the over in this one for what I think should be the most, in my opinion, competitive match of the entire day. Moving on to the next match, you have Draper against Arnaldi. For this one, Draper's minus 325. You have Arnaldi at plus 263. For the spread, minus 3.5 for Draper, plus 3.5 for Arnaldi. For the over-under, 22. For the set spread, you have Draper in straight sets at minus 115. You have Arnaldi to win a set at minus 115. The over 2.5 sets is plus 160. Never faced off before in that set, so we can skip that portion of the preview. However, both guys have been good. So Arnaldi was able to beat Coric in 3, lost the first set. Since then, he's won 8 straight sets. Beat Coric in 3, beat Djokovic in straight sets, beat De Zoomer in straight sets, and beat Tiafoe in the round of 16 match. He's been good. Draper, though, I think has been better. Beat Griekspoor, beat Berrettini in a set in a retirement, and beat Paul. He killed Paul, a 6-2, 6-2. I think Draper really should win this in straight sets. Arnaldi can be dangerous on clay. I'm aware of it, but I think Draper's consistency will extract enough unforced errors from Arnaldi. Arnaldi does have firepower, but his shot selection can be poor at times. Draper tends to be pretty rock solid from both wings. And I think his serve, especially the lefty, slice serve out wide, can be very annoying to deal with. I think Draper wins, probably in straight sets. I think Arnaldi maybe makes one set competitive, but I do think that Draper is right now in better form. And I do think that he's playing at a very solid level after having a pretty decent lull after winning Indian Wells. I think Draper's better, though. He's looked good on clay. I'll go with Draper minus 1.5 sets here at minus 115 as my main play for this one. Moving on to the next match, the final match, you have Diallo against Musetti. Now, Diallo is the biggest shocker to be here. I'd say Arnaldi's the runner-up, but the point is, nice run by Diallo to make it this far. Musetti, though, we know is a great clay player, lost in the final Monte Carlo to Alcaraz. He's a multiple-time clay champion, and we know that he can be very dangerous as the bronze medalist in this past Olympics for the clay slate. Now, Musetti's about minus 400. You have Diallo at around plus 315. For the spread, minus 4 for Musetti, plus 4 for Diallo. The over-under in games at 21.5. For the spread here in sets, you have Musetti in straight sets at around minus 125. You have Diallo to win a set at minus 105. The over-under for sets is at 2.5, and the over is plus 165. Faced off 2 times, actually tied 1-1. They faced off earlier this year in Hong Kong, and Musetti won in straight sets. Faced off in the Davis Cup 2023, and Diallo did win in straight sets. So, point is, Diallo has been having a very solid run, which was not expected, and there's been a bunch of marathons involved. Beat Bergs in straight sets, then ended up beating Majcik, ended up beating Nori, and beat Dimitrov in 3 sets each. Now, the Dimitrov match was definitely an absolute war. I'd say he probably should have lost, but it also takes 2 to tango. He did fight off the match points, so I have to give him props, at least to some degree. Point is, though, I think Diallo is definitely the worst clay player in this matchup. Musetti is a monster on clay. He has not dropped a set yet. Ended up beating Dimonauer in straight sets, beat Tsitsipas in straight sets, and beat Echeverry in straight sets. He's very tough to beat, and the problem I have with Diallo, even though he's got a great serve, really not the best at the net. And with Musetti's very deep return position, I think he can get a lot of returns in play, actually. Now, if Diallo comes forward and is able to end points quickly, he'll have an edge. But the problem is watching him actually play, not the most comfortable at the net. I think Musetti will use his deep return position and not really get punished for it. And I see Musetti serving well enough to avoid many breaks. Diallo, though, has been playing well. I do think that he is a young player who has a lot of potential, but he still hits a lot of unforced errors, and I think Musetti is great at extracting errors because he keeps pretty much every ball in play. He has the slicing. Kind of like what I said about Dimitrov in that match in the last episode, and unfortunately it didn't work out. But the path was still there. Dimitrov was using variety, he was serving well, and Diallo was on the ropes, and then Diallo found a way out of it. But I do think that Musetti is, objectively speaking, better on clay than Dimitrov. You could argue stylistically, they're pretty similar. I think it's a good spot for Musetti to win this. I think that straight sets make sense. If you want to go for the team total over for Musetti at 12.5, banking on Diallo not to get broken for 5 games in a row, I can get behind that too. He is a very good server. So maybe Musetti for the team total over 12.5. I think he probably wins in straight sets, but I do think he's a better player here. I think this price is warranted. I'll go with Musetti to get the job done in this matchup. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the preview of all 4 matches for the quarterfinals of Madrid. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. Before into that, though, reminder they're brought to you by fans. You can play them on Pick'em for a chance to win times your money. You can also use different sports. You can use tennis. You could use the MLB play. You could use the MLB, the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. You name it. When you sign up for your new account, use the promo code SGPN to claim a special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to 1K bonus cash on fantasy promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm is the home of EdBack picks and props. They're also available for the NBA playoffs and for the MLB prop markets. You could also build your own model. It's very easy to do. And you can also try it out for free for a week by using Rhythm's free 7-day trial. But a reminder of the amazing deals which are going on right now. 25% off the monthly subscription with promo code SGPN25 and 50% off the annual deal with promo code SGPN50. That's Rhythm, promo code SGPN25 or SGPN50. Sign up, though, for the 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the matches in the quarters here for Madrid. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the plays, I'm actually going with 2 parlays. I have 1 same-game parlay and 1 regular parlay. The lock will be the regular parlay. I'm going to go with 2 moneyline favorites. I am going to go with Ruud moneyline parlayed with Musetti moneyline, and that pays out at minus 102 on DraftKings. Now, Ruud, I think, is the much better player on clay. We've seen this with the resumes. Now, Ruud's been in great form. beat Rinderknech, Korda, and Fritz in straight sets. Korda, we know, is a pretty solid player in general, and Fritz, I think, is fine on clay. Big serve, though. That's translated well to the courts here, and we saw Ruud win pretty comfortably against Fritz. As for Medvedev, though, he's here against much weaker competition. First of all, only played 2 matches because Desir ended up dropping out, so he had a walkover against Desir. Beat J.M. Sarundalo, who I don't think is very good, challenger level guy in Nakashima, who's a good server, but not good on clay, and that still won 3 sets. I think Ruud is the better player on clay. He's looked better here. I think the topspin plays well here in Madrid. And Medvedev, we know, despite having a good serve, not exactly willing to come to the net that often, and Ruud does stand far back on the court. Both guys do. I think Ruud's net skills are better than Medvedev's, and I do think that Ruud can shorten points if needed. But I like the topspin. I think he'll be able to get by Medvedev. Might go 3, but I do think based on form, Ruud is worthy of being a favorite, so I'll take him here on the money line as my first choice for the parlay. Second choice is Musetti, minus 400 favorite. End of the day, he's not dropped a set yet, being good competition too. And Diallo, though, despite reaching the quarterfinals, still was, I'd say, a bit fortunate that he ended up getting the lucky loser draw, and on top of that, he was able to beat Dimitrov after being on the brink of elimination 3 separate times. Think he is playing well because of the big serve. There were openings, though, for Dimitrov and Musetti. I do think we'll be able to use his deep return position to frustrate Diallo, to once again make him work for it. And I also question fatigue a little bit because Diallo's gone to a 3rd set in about 3 straight matches, and Musetti's been coasting. So you could argue fatigue might play a factor. The match against Dimitrov yesterday was 2 hours and 22 minutes. So you could argue that fatigue could play a factor. We'll see with no days off in between. Point is, though, I think that Musetti's easily better, and I do think he should be a big favorite. Give me the 2-pick parlay of Ruud money line with Musetti money line for the lock on the show at minus 102. For the dog, though, said before I was going to go to a same-game parlay. I am picking the Sarundalo and Mensik match to be close. We did this a couple months ago in a Rublev and Hurkacz match. We thought it was going to be a close battle that went to 3 sets. We're going to back the same strategy here. Going to go with a team total same-game parlay. Sarundalo team total over 12.5, parlayed with Mensik team total over 12.5, and that pays out at plus 178. Now, both guys have been serving very well so far in the event. Sarundalo's been broken 1 time in the entire tournament. Mensik's been broken twice. So both guys have served pretty, I'd say, well, and you're looking at breaks being, in my opinion, minimal in this matchup. So you should be looking at least 1 close set, maybe a breaker in there. But if you're picking this match to be close and you are picking a set to be very competitive, that does bode well for the team total for both players. And I do like the price differential for this same game parlay compared to the over 2.5 sets. Because Sarundalo and Mensik, the over 2.5 sets is plus 120. But the same game team total parlay is plus 178. So you're getting 58 extra cents. And unless you get 1 lopsided set where one guy gets smacked 6-2, which I don't see happening based on how well these guys have been serving, I think you're looking at what should be a breaker, maybe a 6-4 in there as well. But I think both guys have good chances to go over the team totals anyway. And I think it's a good way to take the over 2.5 sets with extra value. Give me the Sarundalo and Mensik team total overs here in a same game parlay as my dog. So once again, the plays for the quarters in Madrid, the lock's going to be on Ruud and Musetti money line at minus 102. For the dog, I am going to go with the same game parlay. Give me the Sarundalo team total over 12.5, parlayed with the Mensik team total over 12.5, and that pays out at plus 178. That's going to wrap it up, though. Once again, apologies for the late episode, but I forgot that was for the quarters. I thought that the Ruud and Medvedev match and the Mensik and Sarundalo match were actually round of 16 matches. So my bad on that one. But either way, point is, luckily, we ended up remembering, and we were able to correct that issue. Till next time, find me on Twitter, Radio, back once again for the semis in Madrid.